Coping with Racism and the Effects of Discrimination on African American Youth by Deja Baker. Coping with racism. Racism includes the beliefs, attitudes, institutional arrangement, and acts that tend to denigrate individuals or groups based on phenotypic characteristics or ethnic group affiliation. Racism for Black children typically occurs subtly in a class or social setting and is very common amongst youth groups. Programs and resources can help African American children better cope with the stressors they will continue to face throughout their life, all while providing a safe place that will make an impact in the lives of Black children. Research has shown that having a support group such as friends, family, spiritual support, and community support has an impact on children coping with racism. Per the textbook, Afrocultural coping uses various components to manage the stressors that African Americans face in their daily lives, based on emotional, spiritual, cognitive, and collective coping skills. These various constructs, when put together, collectively provides the necessary stability many African Americans need in order to deal with racism. African American communities. Communities have a big impact on how someone develops. Socioeconomical status impacts mental and physical health. It also has an impact on behavior, resources, activities, and can expose youth to crime and harsh environmental conditions that can affect them throughout life. 26% of African Americans live in poverty currently in the United States. That makes up double the rate of all other ethnic groups who live in poverty. Since many African Americans live in poverty, they also tend to move around a lot and are more likely to experience discrimination because of their race. In turn, due to the color of one's skin, being Black limits the amount of housing opportunities regardless of the socioeconomic status. Social disorganization theory provides insight to the importance of physical as well as emotional accountability needed within a community. The theory gives a metaphor on fixing a broken window. Essentially, the responsibility of the community forming together and having accountability in order to provide safe communities. The broken window theory discusses the amount of crime and how the environment of one's community depends on the people within the community provide a safe, reliable, clean place to thrive. African American communities continue. Communities have a big impact on Black youth. Black children who grow up in low-income neighborhoods or poverty are more at risk of being exposed to more crimes and trauma. This in turn influences their verbal, visual, and comprehension abilities long term. Low-income communities need more resources and outlets to support the children so that they can develop healthier habits. Children are the products of their environments and can be easily influenced because that is all that they know. More programs, interventions, textbooks, and resources at school are needed to give children an equal opportunity regardless of the community they grow up in. Spirituality, religion, and well-being. Spirituality gives hope and faith, and religion provides support from a higher power. Many African Americans have a strong belief in spirituality, which revolves around their day-to-day life. Spirituality helps African Americans cope with problems and stressful life events. African Americans and people in general find relief, hope, and inspiration and develop good patterns when they have a sense of spirituality. Spirituality has also been proven to help children cope who have experienced crime, poverty, or a traumatic event. A study of Saunders found that Black children who had a good sense of spirituality lessened the effects or completely removed the effects from them. It has also been associated with positive behavioral issues, and they are less likely to participate in crime. Church provides a place within the Black community to worship, but also to belong. It provides an outlet for learning, activities, and groups that are age-specific. In the text, it states, African American churches provide social, economical, psychological, and educational support to its people. Children can participate in youth groups, Sunday school, and church field trips. It gives them an outlet and a safe place within the Black community. Churches have various programs to help the youth, as well as it builds a stronger relationship within the community and brings people together. African Americans tend to have a strong belief in religion and are 50% more likely to attend church. Church provides a safe place and a support system. African Americans tend to look at their pastors as being very influential in their life. To understand the basis behind why the Black community is so involved in religion, we can look back many centuries. Religion can be traced back to when African slaves were brought to America and the Western ideologies were put on them. Instead of following the Western doctrine, they developed their own system and meaning of a higher power. Jesus was the way, the truth, and the light, and provided a sense of liberation and freedom. It gave them a sense of hope for a better future. Many of the emotions and ideologies are still around today and give African Americans the same outlet in more modern times. The role of culture, identity, and discrimination. Having a strong sense of culture helps children to better understand who they are as a person and helps to develop how they believe and express themselves and navigate through life. Racial identity helps children become consciously aware of their self-image based on their race, beliefs, socioeconomic status, and culture. Being aware of the ethnicity they fall into and learning various beliefs and systems, parents play a role in racial socialization, which helps children identify themselves and make positive associations of themselves. Having conversations to better understand the challenges they face in their lives are also a very important part of them learning to identify. Racial discrimination comes in various forms and is experienced in many settings and often is passive. Racial discrimination in children impacts physical and mental health as well. It changes how a child views themselves and has a negative impact on self-esteem. Racial discrimination also causes anxiety, depression, and affects one's behavior. If a child experiences discrimination, they're more prone to feeling rejected and not wanted, according to Cook, Bowie, and Carreri, 2014. Racial socialization prepares children and young adults for racial bias and challenges they will face. Racial socialization helps children develop positive behaviors, values, perceptions, and attitudes. Socializing Black children must start within the household, and the parents should have conversations about life experiences, relationships, and other positive affirmations that are easy for a child to relate to, but also a realization of what they will potentially experience. Studies have shown that having a positive self-identity and positive socialization skills help children and young adults cope once they are faced with life challenges. Socializing a child looks different for everyone. Cultural events are very helpful and provide insight to their history and how their culture works. Help with them develop a positive self-image, and seeing people who look like them helps with self-esteem. Also, discussing bias, racism, and discrimination are also important factors as well. The program that I developed is an after-school program. The program requires at least a meeting 3 times a week after school and 2 times a month on a Saturday for 6 weeks. The 3 times a week after school would consist of them getting help with schoolwork, going to play different sports and events, and then the 2 Saturdays out of the month would require them to give back to the community, volunteer, and so that way they would understand how to give back and how to promote a good, healthy environment within their community. We would be discussing identity, emotion, various stressors, stereotypes, and then there would also be an open discussion where they would be required to find one current event a week while they are in the program to make sure that they are keeping current on what's going on and if they have any questions or anything like that. Volunteers would be from the community, such as parents, teachers, professionals from the community who could share their testimonies, but anyone in a mentorship type situation would be encouraged to volunteer. There would be group and individual sessions. The group sessions would be on a more broader spectrum versus individual sessions would be more, individualized, and it would be tailored to them as a specific student who is a part of the program. So the age group that I will be focusing on is youth ages 12 to 18. I feel like this is a prime time where, they're coming into the teenage years. They're very much influenced by peer pressure, as well as if they're 18, they're about to get into the real world. They're becoming adults. So it can be very stressful, it can be very hard, and they need guidance during that time. We will also be doing racial socialization, as I talked about before, exposing them to different cultural events, helping them figure out what they believe in, what their values are, and all these other things that are going to help make sure that they understand that no matter what the color of your skin is, you are important, you are smart, you can make it, and you are just as good and you are just as better as anybody else, and your skin does not define who you are, you define who you are. There'll be various groups to keep things fresh, so we'll do sports activities, schoolwork, counseling services, There will also be different field trips that we could possibly go on and do volunteer work, like I talked about originally in the beginning on those Saturdays, to help increase and build up that cultural gap that some children might not have. There'll be discussions and seminars about health and wellness, because that is a very important thing that is also a lack in the Black community, as well as mental health awareness. That's also very important. They will have mentors so that they have somebody to go to and they have somebody who can support them. And if they need that support, we'll also go over financial literacy courses, because I think it is so important for children to know how to handle their money and how they can support themselves if they need to support themselves or their families and get out of poverty. And I want them to make it, but it's really important that they know how to do those things. And then they'll have resources and then they will have resources to prepare them for adulthood and life changes. So that way, if they ever need someone, if they need an outlet, if they need help, they know how to access these different resources within the community. There will also be some religious resources. We'll have different people from different religious groups to help them, because their walk in religion might not be my walk. So I want to make sure that everything is covered and they have resources and they always feel like they are accepted in my program. And I think that it will be very helpful to have all these different things available to kids in the Black community. What is your ethnicity and religious heritage? Were you impacted by any environmental factors that influenced you as a child and still affect you as an adult? In what ways would you explain racial discrimination, its impact, and how and what approach would you use to racially socialize children in program? Hopefully these questions are good. Feel free to answer any of them. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation.